The inheritance and the unseen war. Dylan Mercer had never imagined that inheriting a peaceful piece of property could turn into a nightmare. His grandfather's land, 2.5 acres of pristine lakefront, was a slice of heaven, a childhood memory come to life. But that serenity was shattered the moment Whitney Lark moved into Pine Ridge Estates. A woman with a perfect smile, a polished wardrobe, and an attitude that screamed, "I belong here." Whitney quickly made herself known, not just as a neighbor, but as a force that would change everything. It all started with a simple hello, but her questions about the lake, the wildlife, and the community's plans for shared spaces felt more invasive than friendly. Dylan brushed it off. After all, the lake was his family's legacy, clearly marked on every survey and deed. Yet Whitney's persistent curiosity about property lines and surveys hinted at something darker brewing beneath her charming facade. Soon, Whitney became a fixture at HOA meetings, volunteering more, and then suddenly pushing for community management of every private asset. Her glossy newsletter, full of photos of his lake and talk of community cohesion, was just the beginning. Dylan noticed her asking neighbors about surveys, property boundaries, and bylaws. She was gathering information, and he felt the unease creeping in. One afternoon, Hank Brewster, a retired city inspector who knew land laws better than most, warned Dylan. "She's been asking about property lines, Dylan. This isn't casual. It's strategic." Dylan dismissed it as neighborhood enthusiasm until the next newsletter arrived, featuring his lake with a headline about community recreational development. The language was professional, convincing, and completely out of place for a neighborhood newsletter. Then, the real game changed. A formal letter from the HOA called a community meeting to discuss recreational management plans that involved taking control of his private lake. The meeting was more like a corporate pitch, with Whitney expertly presenting ideas backed by a lawyer, Trent Holloway, whose presence seemed too polished, too rehearsed. They showcased photos, legal documents, and projections. The message was clear. They intended to turn Dylan's land into a community resource, whether he liked it or not. Dylan's protests fell on deaf ears. The vote was swift and the outcome was chilling. Support for exploring legal options to access his property. The support shocked him. Neighbors he'd shared decades of friendship with now saw him as the obstacle to progress. Whitney's support grew, and her ambition was obvious. She announced her run for HOA president, positioning herself as the champion of community development. Then came the threats, official notices, environmental tests, and legal threats designed to wear him down. Strangers set up equipment on his land, taking water samples, claiming it was for public health. Whitney's voice came through the phone, smooth but sinister, insisting the testing was legitimate, even though Dylan knew better. It was a tactic to justify legal action, to make him surrender. His world was collapsing. Every day, more neighbors watched him, photographed him, and whispered about the problem owner. Dylan felt more isolated than ever, standing on his dock, staring at his lake that grandfather had fought to protect. Memories of childhood fishing trips played like ghosts in his mind. Then, a voice from his past echoed, his grandfather's, reminding him, "When someone tries to take what's yours with words, they don't have the right to do it at all." And so, Dylan decided to fight back, harder than he ever thought possible. The legal siege and the hidden conspiracy. The next move was clear. Dylan hired Valerie Grant, a sharp, experienced lawyer who specialized in property rights. Her investigation revealed the truth. Whitney wasn't just a well-meaning neighbor. She was part of a broad, calculated scheme. Trent Holloway wasn't just giving legal advice. He was working with Pinnacle Development, a company with a history of buying out properties through deception and legal manipulation. Phone records showed frequent calls between Trent and Pinnacle's regional manager, Greg Talbot, dating back months before Whitney arrived. The pattern was disturbing, pressuring elderly residents to sell, creating false environmental concerns, and pushing legal hurdles designed to exhaust owners into giving up. Meanwhile, Whitney's media campaign grew aggressive. She appeared in local newspapers claiming she was fighting for community access, all while secretly coordinating with Pinnacle to acquire Dillon's land. The environmental reports, supposedly scientific, were exposed as fakes, flawed tests, incomplete data, and equipment traced back to shell companies. The goal was simple: manufacture a crisis, justify taking the lake, and flip it for a profit. Dillon's neighbors, once supportive, started to question her motives. Maggie Connors, a longtime resident, recognized the pattern immediately. She'd seen developers do this before. Hank Brewster's research confirmed that Whitney had no real ties to the community, no voting record, and a history of eviction and financial instability. She was a pawn in a larger game. The harassment intensified. Official notices accused Dillon of violations he didn't commit, demanding impossible responses and threatening court action. His property was monitored daily, neighbors taking notes, snapping photos, looking for any reason to declare his lake unsafe or unkempt. The psychological toll was overwhelming, but Dillon refused to back down. With Valerie's help, he documented every trespass, every false report, and every shady transaction. They installed cameras, kept detailed logs, and gathered evidence of Whitney and Trent's conspiracy, proof that everything was a calculated effort to steal his property. The breakthrough came when Valerie's private investigator obtained audio, recordings of Whitney and Trent discussing their exit strategy, how to make Dillon's life miserable until he surrendered. They talked about manufacturing evidence, manipulating public opinion, and even plans to extort more money from the HOA. The evidence was damning. Whitney's own words, her meetings with Pinnacle, and the forged environmental reports painted a clear picture. This was corporate theft masked as community activism. When the court date arrived, the truth was undeniable. Whitney and Trent's scheme unraveled in front of Judge Patricia Washington. The fake reports, the illegal funding, the secret meetings, everything was exposed. Whitney's emotional breakdown in court only confirmed her guilt. Trent's reputation was destroyed, and his license was under investigation. The court dismissed all charges against Dillon, ordered Whitney to pay his legal fees, and issued a permanent restraining order. The conspiracy was crushed, and the community began to see through the lies, but the fight wasn't over yet. Pinnacle Development was under federal investigation, and the truth about their schemes was just beginning to surface. The final battle and the reckoning. As the courtroom cleared, Dillon faced an uncertain future. Whitney had fled, Pinnacle faced charges, and the community was divided. Yet, amidst the chaos, Dillon found new allies, neighbors who had been duped, but now saw the truth. Maggie, Hank, and others began organizing, demanding accountability. But the real battle was just beginning. Pinnacle's lawyers, backed by powerful interests, fought to silence the truth. Dillon's legal team uncovered a trail of corruption, illegal funding, and conspiracy spanning multiple states. The evidence was staggering, an intricate web designed to manipulate laws, intimidate owners, and seize property. The FBI took notice. Their investigation revealed that Pinnacle had used legal harassment, fake environmental reports, and social manipulation to acquire dozens of properties. Dillon's just the tip of the iceberg. The company's plans for a resort, once just a dream, now teetered on the brink of exposure. In the final courtroom showdown, Judge Washington's reputation for justice proved decisive. She dismissed Pinnacle's claims, ordered criminal charges against the scheme's masterminds, and declared Dillon's property fully protected. It was a victory born of resilience, truth, and unwavering courage. Dillon watched as the community slowly healed, reclaiming their neighborhood from corporate greed. His lake was safe again, a symbol of standing up for what's right. And in the quiet of the night, as the water reflected the stars, Dillon remembered his grandfather's words. When someone tries to take what's yours with words, they don't have the right to do it at all. That lesson had saved his land, his legacy, and his community. A legacy preserved. This story is far from over, but one thing's clear. Sometimes the greatest battles are fought not with guns or fists, but with courage, truth, and an unshakable belief that justice will prevail. And as long as someone stands up for what's right, even the deepest darkness can be broken by the dawn. The courtroom fell silent as Valerie played the recording, the voices of Whitney, Trent, and Greg Talbot, discussing their plan to grind Dylan Mercer into dust until he finally gave up. His land. The words echoed through the room, each sentence like a blow to the conspiracy that had been hidden behind a smile. Whitney's calm voice promising a new beginning for the neighborhood was the mask covering her true intentions. Trent's calculated tone, detailing how to manipulate the legal system, revealed the extent of their deception. Every word confirmed what Dylan had suspected. This was not just a neighborhood dispute. It was a carefully orchestrated attack on Diuraim, his property rights, orchestrated by powerful developers with a hidden agenda. The judge's eyes narrowed as she listened, her gavel poised like a sword ready to strike. When the recording ended, she looked directly at Whitney and Trent, her voice sharp and unwavering. This evidence is damning. Your entire scheme is built on lies and manipulation. I find in favor of Mr. Mercer. All charges against him are dismissed with prejudice. You are ordered to pay his legal fees and are hereby permanently restrained from approaching his property. Whitney's face twisted in shock, her carefully crafted facade cracking. Her lips trembled as she tried to muster a response, but the words caught in her throat. Trent's jaw clenched, his confident smirk replaced by a cold glare. The courtroom erupted into whispers and murmurs, residents realizing the truth behind the smiling faces they'd trusted. The community's eyes now bore witness to the exposure of a conspiracy that had threatened to destroy one man's legacy, and, in the process, had almost destroyed their trust. Dylan felt a wave of relief wash over him, but it was mixed with exhaustion. This wasn't just about a lake anymore. It was about exposing a criminal enterprise that had operated in shadows for years. As the judge banged her gavel, signaling the end of the hearing, Dylan knew that the battle was far from over. Pinnacle Development was under federal investigation now, their web of lies unraveling faster than they could spin new ones. The truth had finally broken free, and the villains were facing their reckoning. In the days that followed, the community was rocked by revelations. The local newspaper ran a front-page story titled, "Property Rights Fraud Exposed in Pinery Edge," detailing how Whitney and Trent had manipulated the system and lined their pockets with HOA funds diverted into shell companies. The story spread like wildfire, igniting outrage and a new wave of unity among neighbors who had once been divided. Whitney, realizing her empire was crumbling, vanished overnight. Rumors swirled that she had left town, desperate to escape the fallout. Trent Holloway, exposed and discredited, faced investigations by the state bar and federal authorities, his reputation in tatters. His attempts to distance himself only made him look guiltier, especially when evidence showed he'd been orchestrating schemes across multiple states, preying on vulnerable homeowners and turning their properties into profit. Dylan watched it all unfold from his dock, the water shimmering under the late afternoon sun. His hand brushed the cool surface of the lake, memories flooding back. His childhood days fishing, quiet evenings watching the sunset. Now, the peaceful water seemed almost sacred, a symbol of victory and resilience. His grandfather's lessons echoed in his mind. When someone tries to take what's yours with words, they don't have the right. But the fight had changed him. Every day was a reminder that evil lurked behind friendly smiles, that greed could wear the face of community. Yet he also knew that truth and perseverance could pierce even the thickest darkness. The community had seen through the deception, and justice was finally catching up with the villains. The FBI's investigation swept across multiple states, revealing Pinnacle's pattern of buying up properties through lies, threats, and legal intimidation. Dylan's case became a beacon, proof that even the most powerful manipulations could be toppled with courage and the truth. His property was safe, his legacy intact, and his community stronger than ever. As night fell, Dylan sat on his dock, gazing at the stars reflected on the lake's surface. For the first time in months, he felt peace. His fight had been long and brutal, but it was worth it. His grandfather's words echoed one last time. Never let anyone steal your birthright, with smooth talk and legal tricks, and he had proven that with integrity and determination, even the deepest conspiracy could be exposed and defeated. The courtroom doors slammed shut behind her, but Whitney's scream echoed long after she was gone. Her face was a mask of fury and despair, a stark contrast to the calm, resolute gaze of Judge Patricia Washington. She had just delivered the final blow, ordering the complete dismissal of all charges, the confiscation of Pinnacle's schemes, and a permanent ban on Whitney and Trent from ever stepping near Dylan Mercer's property again. The evidence was irrefutable. Every forged report, every manipulated law, every lie meticulously woven to steal a man's legacy. Now, it was exposed, shattered like glass under the weight of undeniable truth. Outside, the neighborhood buzzed with whispers and stunned silence. Residents who had once cheered for Whitney's community progress now stared in disbelief, their eyes flickering with shame and realization. The truth had cut through the lies like a sword. Whitney and Trent's conspiracy was nothing more than greed disguised as community concern, a wolf in sheep's clothing. And the wolf had been caught. Dylan, standing in the courtroom's shadow, felt the weight lift from his shoulders. Yet a strange calm settled over him, tinged with something deeper, a quiet sense of victory that felt almost surreal. All the sleepless nights, all the danger, all the false accusations, every effort had been worth it. His grandfather's words echoed in his mind. When someone tries to take what's yours with words, they don't have the right. And now, that right had been reaffirmed, not just for him, but for everyone who believed in justice. But just as he turned to leave, a sharp voice cut through the silence. It was Whitney staggering out of the courtroom, her eyes wild, her face streaked with tears and fury. She lunged forward, voice trembling with rage. "You think this is over? You think you've won?" she spat. "This is only the beginning. You don't understand who you've messed with. Pinnacle isn't done with you. They'll come back. They always do." Dylan froze. The room seemed to tighten around him, a sudden chilling breeze in the air. The words hung heavy. What did she mean? The courtroom had been the battleground, yes. But was this just the end of the war? Or was it the beginning of something even darker? In that moment, the courtroom's quiet was shattered by a series of abrupt knocks. The doors swung open and federal agents stormed inside. Their faces were unreadable, but their presence was unmistakable. An official raid. They moved swiftly, handcuffing Trent, who struggled and shouted protests, and Whitney, who tried to vanish into the crowd but was caught in a flash of cameras and flashing lights. The agents announced they were there to arrest for conspiracy, wire fraud, and racketeering, charges that made everyone's jaw drop. Dylan watched in stunned silence as the truth finally caught up with the masterminds. The FBI had uncovered a nationwide scheme, Pinnacle's pattern of manipulation, using legal tricks and fake environmental reports to buy out communities across multiple states, turning peaceful neighborhoods into their own playground of greed. Whitney and Trent's operation was just a piece of a much larger, more sinister puzzle. As the agents led them away, a deep silence settled over the crowd. Dylan's heart pounded, not from fear, but from a fierce, unshakable sense of justice. His fight had been long, brutal, and dangerous, but the truth had triumphed. The corrupt had been exposed, their empire of lies dismantled. His land, his legacy, and his community were finally free. Turning away from the chaos, Dylan gazed at the lake, still, peaceful, untouched. The water reflected the stars, shimmering like a mirror to his soul. His mind drifted back to his grandfather's words. When someone tries to take what's yours with words, they don't have the right. Now he understood the true meaning. It wasn't just about property or money. It was about standing up for what's right, no matter how powerful the enemies. And as the night deepened, something unexpected happened. The FBI agents handed Dylan a sealed envelope, an official document. His trembling hands opened it, revealing a letter from the agency. His case had been part of a sweeping investigation. Pinnacle's entire operation was under federal indictment. Dozens of victims, hundreds of stolen properties, and a network of corruption uncovered. Dylan's fight had ignited a domino effect, exposing a criminal enterprise that had preyed on communities coast to coast. The ending was as breathtaking as it was unforgettably triumphant. The very land Whitney and Trent had tried to steal was now a symbol of resilience, a testament that truth and courage could topple even the most insidious lies. Dylan's lake, once threatened to be swallowed by greed, was now forever protected. His grandfather's legacy was secure, and a new dawn broke over Pine Ridge Estates. As dawn crept over the horizon, Dylan stood once more at the edge of his lake. The water rippled gently, reflecting the rising sun. He whispered a silent thank you to his grandfather, who had fought for freedom, for honesty, for the right to hold what was theirs. Today, Dylan knew justice wasn't just a word. It was a force that, when wielded with conviction, could change the world. And he had just proven it.